Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried diplomats from different worlds, all coming to Earth's moon for another peace conference. This was what humans did best. They talked, they listened, and they found ways for angry species to stop fighting. The Galactic Council had been using human mediators for over 200 years. In all that time, not a single peace talk had ended in violence. Other species respected humans for this gift. They called Earth a peaceful world and humans the talking species. Sarah had been doing this job for 15 years. She had helped solve wars between the crystal beings of Nexus Prime and the gas creatures of the Void Rings. She had stopped 3 different conflicts just this year. Each time, she sat at a table and helped angry aliens find common ground. Today was different. The hegemony was coming. The hegemony was a group of warrior species that had been growing stronger for the past decade. They controlled over 40 star systems, and their fleets grew larger each month. They had been attacking smaller, weaker species and taking their worlds. The Verdani coalition had asked Earth for help. The Verdani were peaceful traders who lived on green worlds and grew food for half the galaxy. The hegemony wanted their planets and their farms. War seemed certain unless someone could make peace. Sarah watched the hegemony ships arrive. They were huge black vessels covered in weapons. Even their diplomatic ships looked like warships. The lead ship was larger than 3 human destroyers put together. "Admiral," said Lieutenant Park, Sarah's assistant, "the hegemony delegation is requesting permission to dock." "Granted," Sarah said. "And remind all security teams that weapons are not allowed in the conference rooms." Park nodded and spoke into his communicator. Sarah kept watching the ships. Something felt wrong about this meeting, but she could not say what. The Verdani ships had arrived 2 days earlier. They were small green vessels that looked like flying gardens. Their diplomat, Prime Minister Thala, was a kind older female who spoke softly and wanted only peace for her people. She had brought gifts of rare seeds and beautiful flowers for the human mediators. Sarah had spent hours talking with Thala about the conflict. The Verdani were willing to share their farming knowledge with the hegemony. They offered food supplies and trade agreements. They would even give up 2 of their outer worlds if it meant peace. All they wanted was to live quietly and grow their crops. The conference room was the largest on Luna Station. It could hold delegates from 50 different species. The walls were covered with art from hundreds of worlds, gifts given to Earth over the centuries. Each piece represented a successful peace agreement. Sarah took her place at the head of the long table. The human delegation sat on both sides of her. They were diplomats, scientists, and cultural experts who understood how different species thought and acted. The Verdani arrived first. Prime Minister Thala wore robes of living plants that changed color as she moved. Her skin was green and covered with small leaves. Her people were some of the most peaceful in the galaxy. They have never started a war and rarely fought back when attacked. "Admiral Chun," Thala said with her musical voice, "my people are grateful that Earth will help us find peace. We trust human wisdom above all others." Sarah smiled and bowed slightly. "We will do everything we can, Prime Minister. Peace serves everyone better than war." The hegemony delegation entered the room 30 minutes later. Sarah had seen many warrior species before, but the hegemony was different. They moved like predators. Their leader was Warlord Krex, a massive creature with 4 arms and skin like black metal. His species came from a world of constant war. Behind Krex came 12 other hegemony commanders. Each one was from a different warrior species. They all carried themselves like fighters, even though weapons were not allowed in the room. "Human?" Krex said in his deep voice. He did not use Sarah's title or name. "We are here because the Galactic Council demands it. Do not waste our time." Sarah kept her calm expression. She had dealt with aggressive species before. "Warlord Krex, we appreciate you coming. Please sit and we can begin." The talk started as they always did. Sarah explained the rules. Everyone would have time to speak. No interruptions were allowed. All parties would work together to find solutions that helped everyone. Prime Minister Thala spoke first. She told of her people's desire for peace. She offered the hegemony food supplies, farming knowledge, and even some of their worlds. Her voice was sad but hopeful. "We only want to live and grow our crops," she said. "We have enough food to feed the hegemony worlds. We can teach you to grow your own. There is no need for war." Warlord Krex listened without expression. When Thala finished, he stood slowly. "The hegemony does not want your gifts," he said. "We take what we need. Your worlds will become ours. Your people will work for us or die. This is how strong species survive." Sarah felt a chill but kept her voice steady. "Warlord, surely there are benefits to peaceful agreement. Trade makes both sides stronger than conquest." Krex turned his 4 eyes toward her. "Humans talk too much. Your species has forgotten how to be strong. You mediate because you are too weak to fight." Other delegates around the table shifted uncomfortably. Sarah had been insulted before during negotiations. It was part of the process. She would stay calm and find a way forward. "Perhaps we could discuss specific arrangements," Sarah said. "The Verdani have valuable resources. Cooperation could benefit the hegemony more than occupation." The talks continued for hours. The hegemony demanded complete surrender. The Verdani offered everything they could. Sarah and her team suggested compromise after compromise. As the day ended, no progress had been made. The hegemony would not accept anything less than total victory. The Verdani could not agree to become slaves. "We will continue tomorrow," Sarah announced. All parties should consider the proposals discussed today. As the delegations left the conference room, Lieutenant Park approached Sarah. "Admiral, something is bothering me about the hegemony ships," he said quietly. "What do you mean?" Sarah asked. "They brought too many vessels for a diplomatic mission, and our sensors are detecting unusual energy signatures from their cargo holds." Sarah looked out at the hegemony fleet through the observation windows. The black ships hung in space like waiting predators. "Double our security patrols," she ordered, "and monitor their ships closely. Something does feel wrong about this." That night, Sarah could not sleep. In 2 centuries of human diplomacy, they had always found a way to make peace. But the hegemony was different. They did not want compromise or cooperation. They wanted conquest. She stood at her quarters window, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Verdani worlds were preparing for war. Innocent people who only wanted to farm and live peacefully were about to face destruction. Sarah had always believed that talking was better than fighting. Humans had built their reputation on being the galaxy's peacemakers. They were the species that had evolved beyond violence. Tomorrow, she would try again to find peace. It was what humans did. It was who they were. She did not know that by tomorrow night, everything would change forever. The second day of talks began like all the others. Sarah arrived at the conference room early to review her notes. She had spent the night thinking of new ways to bring the 2 sides together. Prime Minister Thala was already there, tending to a small flowering plant she had brought as a gift for the humans. Her green skin looked paler than yesterday, and her leaf-covered hands shook slightly. "Are you feeling well, Prime Minister?" Sarah asked. Thala looked up with her large, gentle eyes. "I am afraid, Admiral Chun. My people sent me here hoping for peace, but I fear the hegemony wants only war." Sarah sat beside her. "We have helped solve 847 conflicts in the past 2 centuries. There is always a way to find peace. But what if one side does not want peace?" Thala asked quietly. Before Sarah could answer, the other delegates began arriving. Representatives from 47 different species filled the room. All of them belonged to the Verdani coalition or were neutral observers. They were scientists, diplomats, and leaders who believed in peaceful solutions. The hegemony delegation entered last. Warlord Krex looked different today. He moved with purpose, and there was something cold in his 4 eyes. His commanders spread out around the room instead of sitting together. "We will continue where we left off yesterday," Sarah announced. "Prime Minister Thala, would you like to present your new proposals?" Thala stood and began speaking about additional concessions her people were willing to make. She offered to give the hegemony 3 more worlds and 50% of all food production. Her voice was desperate now. Krex listened in silence. When she finished, he stood slowly. "The talking is over," he said. Sarah felt something wrong in the air. "Warlord, we have many more options to explore. Perhaps silence, human." Krex raised one of his 4 hands. "You will speak only when I allow it." Around the room, the other hegemony commanders moved closer to the delegates. Sarah noticed they all wore the same type of belt device. Her security training kicked in. "Lieutenant Park," she said quietly into her communicator. "Alert security. Something is happening." Krex heard her and smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Too late for that. He pressed something on his belt device. Suddenly, energy shields appeared around each hegemony commander. At the same time, the conference room's doors sealed shut with a loud clang. "What is the meaning of this?" demanded Ambassador Jorel from the Crystal Confederation. "This is a violation of diplomatic law." "Your laws mean nothing to us," Krex said. He pulled out a weapon that had been hidden inside his belt device. "This station is now under hegemony control." Panic filled the room as the delegates realized what was happening. Many tried to run, but there was nowhere to go. The hegemony commanders drew their own weapons and pointed them at the trapped diplomats. Sarah stood slowly, trying to stay calm. "Warlord Krex, this is a protected diplomatic station. If you have grievances, we can address them through proper channels." Krex laughed, a horrible sound like grinding metal. "You still think this is about talking? You humans are so naive." He walked over to Prime Minister Thala, who was trembling beside her plant. "The galaxy believes you peaceful species deserve protection. Today, we show them the truth." "Please," Thala whispered. "My people have done nothing to hurt you." "That is the problem," Krex said. "Weak species should not exist." He raised his weapon and shot Prime Minister Thala through the chest. She fell to the floor, her green blood spreading across the white conference table. The small plant she had been caring for scattered, its petals like tears. Screams filled the room as the other delegates saw what had happened. Sarah felt her heart stop for a moment, then begin beating very fast. "You murdered a diplomatic envoy," she said, her voice shaking with anger. "This is an act of war against every civilized species in the galaxy." Krex turned to face her. "War? This is not war, human. This is a demonstration." He gestured to his commanders. They began firing at the trapped delegates. The crystal beings shattered into fragments. The gas creatures dissolved into clouds. Representatives from dozens of peaceful species died in seconds. Sarah reached for her emergency communicator, but Krex was faster. He knocked it from her hand and grabbed her arm with 2 of his powerful limbs. "You will watch," he commanded. "You will see what happens to those who are weak." For the next hour, the hegemony systematically executed every non-human delegate in the room. They made it slow and cruel. They wanted fear, not just death. Sarah was forced to watch as beings she had worked with for years were killed one by one. Ambassador Jorel, who had helped her negotiate peace between the mining colonies. Commander Vess, whose people had shared their advanced medicine with younger species. Dr. Helix, who had devoted his life to studying peaceful solutions to conflicts. All dead. All murdered while she could do nothing to help them. The human delegation was kept alive, but surrounded. Lieutenant Park and the others looked at Sarah with horror and confusion. This was not supposed to happen. Diplomatic stations were sacred ground. Peace talks were protected by ancient laws. When the killing was finished, Krex activated a recording device. "This message goes to every inhabited system in the galaxy," he announced. "Today, the hegemony has eliminated 47 weak species representatives. This is what happens to those who believe in peace over strength. The Verdani coalition no longer exists. Their worlds are now ours." He looked directly at Sarah. "The humans will continue to serve as our negotiators. They are useful pets who know how to make other weak species surrender without fighting." "We will never serve you," Sarah said, her voice filled with rage. Krex laughed again. "You will, because you have no choice. Your species talks about peace but has no strength to enforce it. You mediate because you cannot fight. You will help us convince other species to submit, or we will destroy them like we destroyed these fools." He gestured at the bodies covering the conference room floor. "This is the new order. Strength rules. Weakness dies. And humans will help us spread this truth because they are too civilized to do anything else." The recording ended. Krex and his commanders began leaving the room, stepping over the bodies of the murdered delegates. "Clean this up," he told Sarah, "and prepare your next peace conference. The Rigel Alliance thinks they can resist us. You will convince them to surrender." When the hegemony forces were gone, Sarah and the surviving humans were left alone with the dead. The conference room looked like a battlefield. Blood from dozens of species stained the walls and floors. Lieutenant Park was crying as he tried to help a wounded Aquari diplomat who was still barely alive. "Admiral, what do we do?" Sarah looked around the room at the carnage. In 200 years of human diplomacy, nothing like this had ever happened. The hegemony had turned Luna Station into a slaughterhouse. "Send a message to Earth," she said quietly. "What should we tell them?" Park asked. Sarah walked over to Prime Minister Thala's body. The gentle Verdani leader still held one petal from her plant in her dead hand. Sarah knelt and closed Thala's eyes. "Tell them exactly what happened here," she said. "Tell them every detail. And then tell Earth Command that Admiral Sarah Chun requests immediate evacuation of all human diplomatic personnel from every station in the galaxy." "Admiral?" Sarah stood and looked out the observation window at the hegemony fleet. The black ships were already moving toward Verdani space to begin their conquest. "Tell them the age of human diplomacy is over." For the next 72 hours, Earth went completely silent. No response to Galactic Council emergency sessions. No statements about the massacre. No diplomatic protests or calls for justice. The galaxy waited to see how the peaceful species would respond to this unprecedented act of violence against diplomatic law. They would not wait much longer to find out. The galaxy held its breath for 3 days. Emergency sessions of the Galactic Council were called, but Earth's representative chair remained empty. Calls to human diplomatic stations went unanswered. Messages sent to Earth received no response. Admiral Sarah Chun had been evacuated from Luna Station along with all surviving human personnel. The massacre site was sealed by Galactic Council security forces, but the damage was done. 47 species had lost their diplomatic representatives. The hegemony had already begun attacking Verdani worlds. On Earth, something was happening that the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral Chun stood in the emergency command center buried deep beneath Geneva. Around her, screens showed star maps, fleet positions, and intelligence reports from across human space. For the first time in 200 years, Earth's military leaders were all in one room. General Marcus Webb commanded Earth's defense forces. Admiral Lisa Torres controlled the exploration fleets. Colonel James Kim ran special operations. Dr. Elena Vasquez headed weapons research. These people had been keeping secrets for generations. Are we certain about this decision? Dr. Vasquez asked. Once we begin, there is no going back. The galaxy will never see us the same way again. Admiral Chun looked at the images from Luna Station still displayed on the wall. Prime Minister Thala's body. The murdered delegates. Warlord Krex's mocking smile. The galaxy already made its choice, she said. They chose to reward violence and punish peace. We spent 2 centuries proving we were better than our ancestors. 2 centuries showing we could solve problems without killing. And this is what we got for it. General Webb pulled up a holographic display of human space. It showed hundreds of ships marked as civilian vessels, cargo haulers, mining ships, exploration craft, research stations. The hegemony thinks we are weak because we talk instead of fight, he said. They do not understand that we were choosing not to fight. There's a difference. Admiral Torres activated another display. This one showed the same ships, but with different labels. The cargo haulers were actually troop transports capable of carrying entire armies. The mining ships were orbital bombardment platforms with enough firepower to glass planets. The exploration craft were warships disguised as science vessels. How long have we been hiding this? Admiral Chun asked. Since the beginning, Colonel Kim answered. When we first met alien species, our leaders decided to hide humanity's true nature. We wanted to be welcomed into galactic society, not feared. So we became the talking species instead of the fighting species. Dr. Vasquez brought up weapons files that were marked with security levels the galaxy had never heard of. Our medical research stations have been developing new military technologies for decades. Our agricultural colonies are training grounds for special forces. Our entire civilian infrastructure is designed to become a war machine when needed. Admiral Chun walked to the main communications console. And now we need it. She activated the galaxy's emergency broadcast system, overriding all other communications. Every inhabited planet, every space station, every ship with a receiver would hear what she was about to say. Citizens of the galaxy, she began, her voice calm and clear. This is Admiral Sarah Chun of Earth. 3 days ago, the hegemony murdered 47 diplomatic representatives on Luna Station. They called it a demonstration of strength. They called humans useful pets who would help them convince other species to surrender. She paused, looking at the images of the massacre one more time. For 200 years, humanity chose to be the mediator species. We chose peace over war. We chose talking over fighting. We made this choice because we believed the galaxy could be better than the violent histories of our individual worlds. The command center was silent except for the hum of electronics. The hegemony has shown us that the galaxy does not want peace. It wants strength. Very well. From this moment forward, Earth recalls all diplomatic personnel from every station and every world. We are closing our embassies. We are ending our mediation services. Admiral Chun looked directly into the camera. We spent 200 years proving we were better than our ancestors. The galaxy has chosen to reject that gift. Effective immediately, humanity will respond to threats with the methods our ancestors would have used. We are done being civilized. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, beings who had known. Humans as gentle peacemakers stared at their screens in shock. What happened next surprised them even more. Human ships that had been scattered across the galaxy for decades suddenly changed their behavior. Cargo vessels near hegemony space began moving into attack formations. Research stations in remote systems activated weapon systems that appeared from nowhere. Agricultural colonies, launched fighter squadrons that had been hidden underground on the Centauri mining station. Administrator Johnson received new orders from Earth for 30 years. He had been pretending to run a simple asteroid mining operation. In reality, he commanded a fortress that could control shipping through 5-star systems. "Sir," his assistant said, confusion in her voice, "we are receiving military activation codes. These systems have been here all along?" Johnson smiled grimly as hidden weapon platforms emerged from what had appeared to be asteroid mining equipment. The hegemony wanted to see human strength. They are about to get their wish. Across human space, the transformation was happening everywhere. Scientists became soldiers. Miners became weapons operators. Farmers became special forces. The peaceful face humanity had shown the galaxy for 2 centuries disappeared, revealing something the galaxy had never seen. Dr. Sarah Kim had been running a medical research station near the edge of hegemony territory. She had treated injured aliens, developed new healing techniques, and saved thousands of lives. Now she was activating combat systems that had been built into her station from the beginning. How many people knew? Asked her head nurse, an alien from the peaceful Kithani species. "Every human," Dr. Kim replied as her medical station transformed into a military base. "We all knew what we were hiding. We all chose to hide it. The galaxy never asked us why we were so good at avoiding war. They just assumed we were naturally peaceful." The Kithani nurse looked terrified. "But you saved my life when I was injured. You are healers. We can be both," Dr. Kim said gently. "Humans are very good at being whatever the situation requires. For 200 years, the situation required diplomats and peacekeepers. Now it requires something else." Word of humanity's transformation reached the hegemony within hours. Warlord Krex was aboard his flagship, preparing for another attack on Verdani colonies. When his intelligence officers brought him the reports, "The humans are mobilizing some kind of fleet," his chief strategist reported. "Our scouts count over 3,000 vessels moving toward our territory." Krex laughed. 3,000 cargo ships and research vessels? Are they planning to negotiate us to death?" "Sir, something is strange about these ships. They are not broadcasting standard civilian identification codes." "Because they are scared," Krex said dismissively. "Humans have never fought a real war. Their entire species has been soft for centuries. Send a message to Earth. Tell them we will destroy any ship that enters hegemony space." But the hegemony intelligence was wrong about one crucial thing. Humans had fought real wars. They had fought them for millions of years on their home planet. They had fought wars that made the hegemony's conflicts look like children's games. They had just chosen to stop fighting for the past 200 years. Now, that choice was over. Admiral Chun watched the deployment reports come in from across human space. Ships that had been disguised for decades were revealing their true capabilities. Humans who had been playing peaceful roles were dropping their masks. "Admiral," General Webb reported, "all forces are ready. We have complete tactical surprise. The hegemony still thinks we are a civilian species." Admiral Chun looked at the galaxy map one last time. In a few hours, the hegemony would discover what humans were really like when they decided to stop being civilized. "Begin the demonstration," she ordered. The first hegemony patrol encountered human forces near the Proxima system. Commander Vex commanded 5 hegemony destroyers and expected to face frightened human cargo ships. Instead, he found 12 human vessels that looked nothing like the peaceful craft the galaxy knew. These ships were built for war, with weapons that made hegemony technology look primitive. "Open fire!" Commander Vex ordered that his ships launched their heaviest weapons at the human fleet. The humans did not try to run or call for negotiations. They responded with a precision and speed that stunned the hegemony crews. The battle lasted exactly 4 minutes. All 5 hegemony destroyers were destroyed. Not one human ship was even damaged. The few hegemony survivors who escaped in life pods brought impossible reports back to their fleet. The humans had reacted to attacks before sensors could detect the incoming fire. They had predicted hegemony movements and been waiting in exactly the right positions. Their weapons hit targets that should have been impossible to track. Warlord Krex received the battle reports with disbelief. 5 destroyers were defeated by 12 civilian ships? Sir, those were not civilian ships, the surviving officer reported. The humans have hidden the military fleet for generations. Their technology is more advanced than ours. Krex slammed his 4 fists on the command table. Impossible. We have studied human capabilities for decades. They are weak negotiators, not warriors. What the hegemony did not understand was that humans had been studying them too. For 30 years, every diplomatic contact had been gathering intelligence. Every cultural exchange had been mapping hegemony weaknesses. Every trade negotiation had been learning about their military capabilities. Dr. Elena Vasquez had spent those decades developing weapons specifically designed to counter hegemony technology. The medical research stations had been testing combat drugs that enhanced human reflexes beyond what any other species could match. Admiral Torres commanded the human assault from her flagship, the Earth's Wrath. For 30 years, it had been disguised as a deep space research vessel. Now it revealed weapon systems that could destroy entire fleets. Target their command ships first, she ordered her fleet. The hegemony cannot adapt without their leadership. Human tactics were unlike anything the galaxy had seen before. Other species fought in predictable patterns, following ancient military traditions. Humans changed their approach in real time, learning from each engagement and adapting faster than their enemies could. Respond. Captain Sarah Martinez commanded a squadron of fighters that had been hidden inside an agricultural station. Our pilots had been practicing combat maneuvers disguised as crop dusting exercises. They knew every detail of hegemony ship designs from decades of careful observation. Remember, their sensors have a blind spot below their command decks, she told her pilots as they approached the hegemony cruiser. Hit them there and their entire targeting system goes down. The attack was perfect. The human fighters moved with coordination that seemed impossible to their enemies. They struck the cruiser's weak point with surgical precision, disabling a ship 10 times their size without losing a single fighter. Similar engagements were happening across 200 star systems. Human forces that had been hiding for generations revealed themselves with devastating effect. The hegemony discovered that their easy targets were actually the most dangerous military force in the galaxy. Colonel Kim led ground operations on hegemony worlds. His colonial farmers were actually special forces trained in combat techniques that other species had never developed. They could survive in environments that would kill other warriors and fight effectively even when badly injured. The hegemony relies on fear tactics, he explained to his commanders as they prepared to assault a hegemony military base. They expect their enemies to break and run. Humans do not break. The assault on the base demonstrated this perfectly. Hegemony defenders used psychological warfare that had terrified other species into surrender. They broadcast horrible sounds and images designed to cause panic. They released chemicals that induced fear in most alien nervous systems. The humans were not affected. Their evolutionary history on Earth had prepared them for horrors that made hegemony tactics seem mild. They advanced through the base methodically, treating each hegemony defender with the same cold efficiency they showed machinery. Within 6 weeks, the hegemony had lost half their Tory. Their fleets were being destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Their ground forces were surrendering rather than face human assault teams. Warlord Krex called an emergency meeting of all hegemony commanders. The war room of his flagship was filled with the greatest military minds of the Warrior Alliance. "How is this possible?" he demanded. "Humans are weak. They have no military tradition. They spend their time talking instead of fighting." General Mordak of the Titan species had been a warrior for 200 years. He had conquered dozens of worlds and never known defeat. Now his forces were retreating from human space as fast as their ships could carry them. "Sir, I believe we misunderstood the humans completely," he said quietly. "They do have a military tradition. They have been hiding it from us." "What do you mean?" Krex growled. "Every piece of human technology can be used for war. Their cargo ships are actually troop transports. Their mining equipment becomes orbital bombardment weapons. Their medical stations are military bases. They have been preparing for war while pretending to want peace." Admiral Thok of the Raider clans added her own observations. "More than that, sir. The way humans fight is different from any species we know. They adapt to every situation. They learn from each battle and change their tactics. They coordinate across vast distances like a single organism. And they do not show fear," General Mordak continued. "Other species break under pressure. Humans become more dangerous when threatened. It is as if violence is their natural state, and peace was the artificial condition. The truth was worse than they imagined. Humans had evolved on a death world where everything wanted to kill them. They had survived by becoming the most dangerous predators on their planet. Their peaceful nature was not evolution. It was a choice they made after conquering their own world so completely that they had to create artificial challenges to stay interested. Dr. Vasquez monitored the war from her command center on Earth. Biosensors throughout human space showed that human soldiers were actually performing better under combat stress than during peacetime exercises. "Look at these readings," she told Admiral Chun. "Human heart rates, reaction times, and decision-making abilities all improve during combat. We are literally designed for war." Admiral Chun reviewed the battle reports coming in from the front lines. Human forces were not just winning, they were dominating completely. Hegemony fleets that had terrified the galaxy for decades were being destroyed by human ships they had never seen before. "How long until the hegemony collapse is complete?" she asked. General Webb checked his strategic displays. "At current rates, 6 more weeks. They cannot replace losses fast enough to continue fighting. Most of their allied species are already requesting separate peace agreements." The requests for peace were coming through non-human intermediaries. The galaxy had learned that humans were no longer interested in diplomatic negotiations. Species that wanted to survive simply declared neutrality and evacuated any systems that might become battlefields. The Krell Empire, which had been allied with the hegemony, sent a message through the Galactic Council. "The Krell Empire recognizes that we misunderstood human capabilities. We withdraw all support from hegemony operations and request that human forces consider us neutral in this conflict." Similar messages came from dozens of other species. The galaxy was learning a new lesson. When humans decided to fight, surrender was the only rational choice. Warlord Krex watched his empire crumble from his command ship. In 10 weeks, he had gone from the most powerful being in the galaxy to a fugitive running from human hunter-killer squadrons. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we are receiving a message from the human fleet." Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Behind her stood human military officers whose existence the galaxy had never suspected. "Warlord Krex," she said calmly, "this is Admiral Chun. You have 48 hours to surrender yourself and your remaining commanders for trial. If you refuse, we will continue hunting you until every member of your leadership is dead." Krex stared at the human who had once been forced to watch the massacre on Luna Station. "You are weak. You begged for peace. I offered you peace, Admiral Chun replied. You chose war instead. This is what human war looks like. The communication ended. 48 hours later, human forces located Krex's flagship and destroyed it. There were no survivors. The war ended not with a peace treaty, but with complete silence from hegemony space. Human forces had systematically dismantled the Warrior Alliance in less than 4 months. Every hegemony leader was dead. Every hegemony world had surrendered or been evacuated. Admiral Sarah Chun stood in the same observation deck where she had watched the peace talks begin 6 months earlier. Luna Station had been rebuilt, but everything was different now. The conference rooms designed for diplomatic negotiations had been converted to military command centers. Representatives from across the galaxy were requesting meetings with Earth. But they no longer came as equals seeking mediation. They came as petitioners asking for protection. The first to arrive was Chancellor Yates of the Democratic Systems Alliance, representing over 200 peaceful worlds. His ship landed with all weapons disabled and broadcasted surrender codes as it approached. Admiral Chun, he said when he entered the station. His voice shook slightly. The Alliance wishes to formally apologize for our failure to prevent the Luna Station massacre. We should have acted to stop the hegemony's aggression. Sarah listened without expression. For 30 years, Chancellor Yates had been one of the strongest supporters of human diplomatic services. He had often praised Earth for its evolution beyond violence, and had used humanity as an example of what civilized species could become. Chancellor, she replied, your apology is noted. What do you want from Earth now? Protection, he admitted. Without the hegemony threat, smaller aggressive species are trying to fill the power vacuum. Our worlds are being attacked by raiders and pirates who think the galaxy has become weak. Sarah walked to the observation window where she could see the new human fleet patrolling nearby space. These were not disguised cargo ships or hidden research vessels. These were purpose-built warships that made no attempt to appear peaceful. And what makes you think Earth will provide this protection? Chancellor Yates followed her gaze to the human warships. Because you are the only species with the strength to maintain order. The galaxy has learned what happens to those who threaten human interests. This was the new reality. In 4 months, humanity had gone from being the galaxy's mediators to being its undisputed rulers. Not through conquest or occupation, but through the simple demonstration of overwhelming power. Dr. Elena Vasquez entered the observation lounge carrying a data tablet. As Earth's new director of galactic affairs, she had replaced the old diplomatic corps with something the galaxy had never seen before. Admiral, we have received formal surrender requests from 47 species that were allied with the hegemony, she reported. They are offering complete cooperation with human authority in exchange for protection from retaliation. Sarah reviewed the list. These were the same species that had been attacking peaceful worlds just months earlier. Now they were begging Earth for mercy. What are our terms? Chancellor Yates asked nervously. Dr. Vasquez activated her tablet and displayed what became known as the Terra Doctrine, humanity's new rules for galactic civilization. First, she read, any species that attacks diplomatic representatives or civilian populations will face immediate human military response. Second, all conflicts between species must be resolved through arbitration supervised by human observers. Third, any species that refuses human arbitration will be considered hostile and treated accordingly. And if we agree to these terms? The Chancellor asked. Then human forces will protect your worlds from aggression, Sarah answered. Pirates, raiders, and aggressive species will find themselves facing the same fate as the hegemony. The Chancellor signed the agreement without reading it completely. So did representatives from 300 other species over the following weeks. The galaxy had learned a simple lesson. Cooperation with humanity meant safety, while opposition meant destruction. Dr. Elizabeth Moore had been studying galactic sociology for 20 years. Before the war, she had been part of Earth cultural research teams, analyzing how different species interacted. Now she was documenting the most dramatic social change in galactic history. "It is remarkable," she told Sarah during one of their briefings. "Galactic crime rates have dropped by 90% in the past month. Trade disputes are being resolved in days instead of years. Species that have been fighting for centuries are suddenly finding peaceful solutions." "Fear is an effective motivator," Sarah replied. "It is more than fear," Dr. Moore continued. "The galaxy is learning that humans were never actually peaceful. We were the most dangerous species they had ever encountered, pretending to be harmless. Other species spent thousands of years developing warrior cultures. But humans mastered warfare so completely that we grew bored with it. This was the truth that shocked the galaxy more than human military superiority. Humans had not evolved beyond violence. They had become so good at violence that they treated it as a solved problem. Their peaceful nature was the confidence of apex predators who no longer feared anything. Captain Rodriguez commanded a human patrol ship near the former hegemony border. His job was to intercept any aggressive species attempting to raid the now undefended worlds. The work was easy. Most potential raiders surrendered as soon as they detected human ships. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "we are detecting an unauthorized fleet moving toward the Centauri colonies. They are not responding to our warnings." Rodriguez checked his tactical display. 12 ships of unknown configuration, heavily armed and moving in attack formation toward a peaceful trading world. "Send them one more warning," he ordered. "Tell them they have 60 seconds to reverse course or face human military action." The response came back immediately. "Unknown human vessel, we are the Iron Brotherhood. We do not fear your species' reputation. Withdraw or be destroyed." Rodriguez smiled. The Iron Brotherhood was a new raider group, made up of former hegemony allies who thought they could fill the power vacuum left by the warrior alliances. "Destruction. All ships," he announced. To his small patrol group, "Demonstrate the Terra Doctrine. Leave no survivors." The engagement lasted less than 2 minutes. 12 heavily armed raider ships were destroyed by 3 human patrol vessels. The colonies they had been planning to attack never even knew they had been threatened. Word of the Iron Brotherhood's destruction spread quickly through the galactic criminal underworld. Within days, raiding activity dropped to almost nothing. The message was clear. Human protection was absolute, and human retaliation was total. A year after the war ended, Admiral Chen received a request for a meeting that surprised her. Ambassador Helix of the Aquari Confederation wanted to visit Earth itself, something that had never been allowed during the diplomatic era. The Aquari were one of the oldest species in the galaxy, known for their wisdom and ancient knowledge. Ambassador Helix had been studying galactic politics for over 300 years. "Admiral," he said when he arrived on Earth, "I have come to ask you a question that my species has debated for months." They met in Geneva, in the same building where human leaders had decided to end their peaceful charade. Through the windows, Ambassador Helix could see human military installations that had been hidden beneath the city for centuries. "What is your question?" Sarah asked. "Were you always planning this?" Helix asked quietly. "The diplomatic era, the peaceful reputation, the hidden military capabilities. Was it all a long-term strategy to eventually rule the galaxy?" Sarah considered the question carefully. It was one that she had asked herself many times. "No," she finally answered. "We genuinely wanted peace. We thought the galaxy could be better than the violent histories of our individual worlds. We built our hidden capabilities as insurance, hoping we would never need them. But you were prepared, Helix observed. Humans learned long ago to hope for the best while preparing for the worst. We offered the galaxy peace, but we were ready for war if peace failed. Helix looked out at the human city below, where millions of people went about their daily lives in a civilization built on controlled violence. And now? Now the galaxy has learned that peace requires strength to enforce it. The gentle species are protected because aggressive species know what happens to those who threaten them. Pirates do not raid because they know human forces will destroy them. Conflicts are resolved quickly because no one wants to face human intervention. Ambassador Helix nodded slowly. So humans have become the galaxy's guardians. We have become what the galaxy forced us to become, Sarah replied. We offered to be mediators. They chose to make us rulers instead. As Ambassador Helix's ship departed Earth, he sent a message to the Aquari Confederation. The humans have not conquered the galaxy. They have simply stopped pretending not to own it. The galaxy had learned the most important lesson in its history. There was a difference between a species that could not fight and a species that chose not to fight. Humanity had spent 2 centuries proving they were the latter. And now, for the first time in galactic history, there was true peace among the stars. Not the fragile peace of careful diplomacy, but the solid peace that came from knowing that violence would be met with overwhelming force. The age of human civilization was over. The age of human dominance had begun, and the galaxy was safer than it had ever been before.